Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Glass Half Full, a podcast and a safe platform where we talk with a variety of teachers, entrepreneurs, spiritualists, uplifters, givers, shakers, and serenaders. Everyone has a lesson to learn and a lesson to share. Let's use our life experiences to enrich someone's heart, mind, spirit, and soul. Through sharing our experiences, we can be a learning inspiration for one another. I'm your host, Chris Levins. Let's welcome today's guest. Today's guest is Julie Barth. Julie Barth is an author and the founder of CJB Outreach. Let's give a warm welcome to Julie Barth.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for taking some time out to be a guest here on Glass Half Full. We're so happy to have you today.
Well, thanks for. I'm excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Can you tell everyone where you are in the world and what time is it?
I am in Aiken, South Carolina, and it is 9 a.m. here.
Excellent. Well, good early morning to you. We're going to jump right on in. I like to ask all my guests this first question. I believe that our lives are in spiritual design. Can you share your life layout or blueprint with everyone? This is how you grew up, where, your family lifestyle?
So I was born in a suburb of Chicago. It was on the north side. So far enough removed that it felt like a small town, but it was a fairly large town. I grew up with my mom, my dad, and one sister. And I don't really, it's weird when I think about my childhood because I envision my life in chapters. And the first chapter went really, really quickly. I don't remember much about it. But we moved when I was in third grade. And the one memory that I do have, ironically, is when we moved, back in the day, there was no FaceTime or way to keep in contact. So when you left one town, you were gone, never to return again. And I moved to the suburb that I then grew up in, and I met my first husband in third grade, and it was almost like the defining moment.
Did you say you met him in third grade?
I did, yeah.
Wow.
I met him in third grade, yeah, and I went to the fun fair with him in sixth grade, and we kissed, and then we lost touch for many years.
Okay.
We went to the same school and stuff, but we kind of just hung out in different circles. And it wasn't until after we graduated college, meeting back in a bar, that it almost felt as if everything had come full circle. And, when I was in the fourth grade, I remember practicing writing Julie Barth. And at that time, my name was not Julie Barth, but I remember writing it. And yeah, looking back on it, it almost felt like, things were written long before.
Yeah, you were bringing it into existence. Yes.
Yeah. So he was my best friend. He was everything.
Oh, I love that. Sorry, please continue.
Oh, you're fine. So we ended up, like I said, meeting back up again and very quickly, I think within 2 months, moving in together, and things just progressed naturally. We had our first son, moved back to the suburbs that we were from. And, I wanted a huge family. So we quickly got busy on having more children, had a couple miscarriages. And then I got pregnant with my second child, Tatum. And Tatum, where Hayden, my first child, everything was very natural and normal. And nothing about Tatum's pregnancy was either of those. She, from day one, just stopped growing to the fact where, I'd show up 6 weeks and they said, congratulations, you're 6 weeks pregnant. And then I went back at 10 weeks. So congratulations, you're 10 weeks pregnant. And by 12 weeks, she was still measuring only about 7 or 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. So even though it was in the 2000s, I couldn't write off instrument error anymore. And that's how our pregnancy went. She just never grew. I would go in after 2 weeks and she'd grow 3 days. And then I would go in after 3 weeks and she'd grow 4 days. And there was really no rhyme or reason to it. And although they kept telling me that there was something wrong. They couldn't really tell me what it was. So we had 40-some ultrasounds, and I was heavily monitored. And even though she wasn't growing, there wasn't any, we throughout all the ultrasounds, there weren't any genetic markers that something was going on. And we did have an amnio, and that turned out normal. So it was just a waiting game.
Mm.
And there was almost this belief between everyone that once she came out and we got eyes on her, that everything would, all of our questions would be answered. But unfortunately, they delivered her at 37 weeks. And I think they did so more for my mental stability than hers, because it had been, 8.5 months of she's going to die. We don't know what's wrong.
Oh,
There's
wow.
something wrong. I mean, just all of the stress.
Mm.
And so, yeah, they delivered her, and it only further started a cycle of what is going on here. There's a lot of medical malpractice that we didn't know about. But even at that, when she came out, she still didn't grow. It was, and one of the phrases that they use in the NICU that I really disliked, because it just sounded like it had taken all the hope out of it, is they just kept saying she has failure to thrive. And, that was their medical diagnosis,
She
was
has, I'm
failure to
sorry, say
thrive.
again.
So it's called failure to thrive.
Failure to thrive. Okay.
Yes. So basically it means we don't know why, but she's just not making it. It's just it's almost the umbrella that they put all the unknowns underneath. And so we lived under that for about 2 years, traveling around the United States. And at that point, the malpractice that she had been through damaged her throat. She had a trach that led to throwing up. And so there were all these mitigating factors. And no matter what we did, all the doctors that we saw wanted to go back to what is globally wrong with Tatum. And a lot of them ignored the fact that what we were dealing with in those moments were trying to heal her throat, get her to stop throwing up so that she could start thriving a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always that question of, she was over a year old, and she was 8 pounds, if you can imagine. So she was the size of a 7-week-old running around my home with her 0 to 3 month walking shoes from the Gap.
Wow.
So it wasn't until she was about 3 and people started coming up to me in the grocery store when I was out with her saying, "Is your daughter the one in that Discovery Channel show?" And I hadn't seen it. So it took me back. And it was just a very eerie feeling, like, why all these people coming to me and asking me this question, until one of my best friends told me that she had seen the show, and it was about something called primordial dwarfism. So Google was finally coming around, and I Googled it, and everything about Tatum was explained in that moment. It was like, it popped up, all the facial features that she had, and the things that they were saying about, like, her fingers being, mildly turned in, elf ears, everything that they kept honing on was like right in front of us. But, back in 2001, the way that they diagnosed things, there was no social media. There were no computers to link things together. They would literally just go through their encyclopedia medical books and, nope, that's not it. Nope. And, it explained everything in an instant, which was both good and bad. It gave us kind of a playbook of what we were dealing with. Not a whole lot of resources of what we can do about it, because there wasn't much to do about it.
So what was the diagnosis discovery? That she was that the dwarfism was a part of this? What was it that you...
Yes. So, like, the reason that she wasn't growing was because she has a very rare form of dwarfism.
Okay.
There's several different kinds. Primordial dwarfism, for all practical standards, is the smallest man on Earth recorded had primordial dwarfism. Now, Tatum has a variation of it, but she's proportionate. She's just, even to this day, I don't think she reaches 4 feet.
Okay.
So, the prognosis was not really that off from, what you would expect. She has some learning difficulties from it. Her joints will start to separate as she gets older, but she is, 25 now. So
Wow.
You know,
That's awesome.
she's
This is
doing
25.
incredibly
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's always, she's always beat whatever it is they gave us expectations for. They'd say,
I
"Oh,
love that.
she'll never walk upstairs," and the next thing I know, she's running up
She's
the
skipping up.
stairs. So,
Yes, yes, Tatum.
um,
I love it. I love it. She's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, but then
yes,
we should see
she's
her
the
in the
most
book.
stubborn
She
human
should be in
being
the
I've ever
book.
met. She is in the
Wow.
book. Actually, the book is all about her life story and her dad's as well. That my first book, Nuts from the Blackberry, is all about taking her from from Colin and I meeting to having her to traveling around the United States. Just I would take her in for something as simple as like a cold, and the next thing I knew, she was flatlining.
Jesus.
So I will say to this day, I can't figure out on certain days whether she is the luckiest of the unluckies or the most unlucky of the luckies, because she will always be on the side of 1% for whatever that means to
Mm,
her, like
yes.
the, the, yeah. So,
Oh, I
I
love
mean,
that.
I'll go to pick up fast food and, I have 6 children. I'll bring everybody's order home and without fail, and this is the honest to God's truth, Tatum's meal is always missing. Like, and
What?
it's not like she orders something unusual. It's just like a cheeseburger, and I'll get home and I'll be like, oh, so I do check now.
I was
But
about to
it's
say, please
almost
check for
like,
Tatum's meal. Please, please check for Tatum's meal. Let that be the first
and
meal that's
that's
checked
just
for.
yeah. Well, that's just like an example of like, I do believe in the universe. I believe there's a reason we're all here,
Yes.
and there is no reason medically or soundly why she is still here,
Wow.
which is the whole reason she is here.
I love it. I love it. She's
She
a walking
every day
miracle.
she proves, yeah, every day she proves that miracles do
Yes,
exist.
this is it. This is it.
Yeah,
Okay, so now
yeah,
keep us going. We're gonna come back. So,
sure.
okay, this is child number two, right? So
Child number two,
yes.
yes.
Okay, so let's further on. During the adolescence, so you were saying that it was difficult, having difficulties with raising the child, and the first child is just regular standard, like anything with the first child at all, as far as like
No,
health.
he was,
Okay.
yeah, no. And that's the thing about what Tatum has is there's no genetic marker
Okay.
for it.
This is
They
what I
haven't
love.
even they haven't even figured out whether it's, a recessive trait or
So it's
how it
just
even comes
random.
about. Right. And
Okay.
so I think that really put us into kind of like it was good and bad because had it been genetically linked, I might have said, okay, well, we'll either adopt or, we'll whatever that looked like. But I still wanted a big family. And Tatum's medical issues for 3 years were just, everything in our world.
Hmm.
And as things started clearing up with her, I really decided, I want to continue on with having a large family. I kind of felt like, I don't
Wow.
want, I see so many times, when you have a sick child that people, all of their focus, gravitates necessarily toward that
It's true.
child. But I never wanted our lives to be lonely or really centered around her medical issues.
Hmm.
So as she got better and she had airway reconstructive surgery to remove the trach, things started just normalizing in our world, and we proceeded to have 2 more children. So
What is the
um,
difference in
we
times between Tatum and the next child? How many
so
years?
there's 5 years in between my first child and Tatum.
Okay.
Between Tatum, my third child, I believe there are 3 years, and then between my third child and my fourth child, there are 2 years.
Okay.
So in 2007, we had just had our fourth child, and things were, I was living the dream that I always dreamed of,
Oh,
just family in the suburbs, married to my best friend, very involved in sports and school. And as a couple, we were just very ingrained in our community. And so when our youngest was about 6 months, my husband, Colin, worked down at the Board of Trade, and he just stopped he wasn't behaving like himself. He was always very engaged, sarcastic, fun to be around, and not to put him down, but there is something had changed, and he was very isolated, maybe, and just closed off, and wasn't really participating the way that he normally did. And he was back and forth to the doctor saying he had stomach problems. And, I really, at that point, we had a talk, if your work is too stressful, then, maybe we should consider something else. But he just kept trudging through it until one day we were having this, huge party in the community. And I went to him and I said, next week is our Halloween party, and I really need you to go figure out what's going on, and because they need you back. I don't know what's going on, but obviously they're dismissing whatever you're feeling. So just go to the hospital. Don't come out until they have run tests and they can really give you an answer how we fix this. And within 3 or 4 hours, he was in the hospital, and I just felt this need to get to the hospital. And I can't really tell you why, or nothing preempted it. I just had this feeling like I gotta get there. And so I showed up at the hospital, and he was sitting up in bed, and he just had this look on his face. And he said to me, "Oh, the attending just came in, and he was telling me something, and then his beeper went off, and he had to walk out the room, but he'll be back." And so I said, "Okay." And literally right as I was walking in, the attendant came back, and he said, "We found a tumor on your pancreas and several lesions on your liver, and we're not sure yet, but it looks like it might be cancer." And from that moment on, I will honestly say nothing in my world was ever the same.
Oh.
In that moment, we pretty much lost him. Yeah. So they gave him 2 weeks to live.
Wow.
And they said, take him home, let him say goodbye to his children. And
Oh my God.
true to me, I wasn't having it. Yeah. So I found him a trial, and he did end up living 16 months, but they were, some really, really tough months.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you.
So how long has this been? When did this happen? What year did this?
So it was 2009, which is hard for me to even believe that it was, 15 years ago that this all happened. Yeah, we lost him in January. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and other days it feels like a completely different lifetime.
Wow. And so after this, now you are left with 4 children, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
As a widow.
As a widow, a stay-at-home mom, because I couldn't get a job. I did have, a bachelor's and a master's degree, but Tatum was my full-time job. And, it didn't make sense for me to go to work, because then we would just have to, pay for childcare, and who's going to take care of Tatum. So, when he passed, I was now the breadwinner, the head of household for 4 little kids. And although I did have an education, I had been out of the workforce for 10 years. So at that point, the only thing that I could really, so when he was really sick, I sold things on eBay, and that was great. I mean, it got us through 2 really tough years because he didn't have vacation or medical pay.
Wow.
So I was able to float us. But in 2009, I don't know if people remember the economic atmosphere, but, the housing market dropped out, collectibles dropped out because no one had any disposable income. And at that point, I decided it was time for me to, find something, and I became a writer. And so that's really what I did and that's what I do today. I kind of just took my desire to, I'm a words person. So I became a full-time writer and was able to work from home remotely and still be at home with the kids, which was,
wow, that's a
more of a blessing
yeah.
than yeah. So
now had you,
like I said,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask about the writing. So was writing something you had done growing up? Did they say, Julie, that girl, she always writes good essays? Was it something that we felt like you were reading things? They were like, Julie, go ahead and get up and read something you wrote. Was this was a completely different avenue that you stepped into?
I would say a completely different avenue. Although I really enjoyed writing,
Okay.
I could honestly say I think I almost failed literature.
That's okay. It's all right. You're not the only one. You're not. There's many of them out there. Don't worry. And look at you writing
Well,
books. It didn't matter.
yeah, and it really was a matter of grammatical errors. I love a run-on sentence sometimes, though, but
Don't we all?
so I would like to believe that it was just the grammatical nature of my writing. But yeah, I did. Even though I became a writer, when I would take Colin to chemo on Tuesdays,
Mhm.
we would go downtown and I would leave all the kids behind. And I kind of felt like it was going to be our time to reconnect because we had 5 crazy years with Tatum traveling and surgeries and all the stuff that we went through with her. And so he was so sick, he didn't want me moving around. And I had a BlackBerry. And so I would sit next to him and I was writing. I don't know if anybody out there will remember, but there's something, I think it was called the family tree or the caring tree. And it was a blog space where people who were ill could write. Again, this was
Mhm.
before technology was so in our hands.
Yes.
You could write a blog that would go out to, anybody who was on the caring tree that could read about your journey.
Wow.
And I had people from, all over the world. And when Colin passed, people would write out to me and say, like, please don't stop writing. And people I've never met before.
Wow.
So when I was sitting with him, I was writing our story because I didn't write it. Again, I wasn't a writer at the time. I didn't write it for any other purpose that I knew my children would probably never get to meet him. And it was very important for me to not only give witness to Tatum's struggles and challenges, because anybody who reads the book, you will shake your head when you read all the things that have happened to her.
Hmm.
But more so, too, I wanted my children to know how hard Colin fought to stay here. And, they saw him in their early years so much differently than he really was because he was sick. So I
Mhm.
wanted to, recount how full of life our lives were.
I love
So
that.
that's where I would write it on my BlackBerry and email it back to myself. And it sat on my computer for 13 years.
Wow.
All pieced together. And, I proceeded on with my life and closed that chapter of my writing and never really felt as if I could go back and reread it. And that's why it's sad because I don't think I wasn't in the headspace to go through it again, to
Mhm.
relive it by reading it.
Understandably so.
So, yeah.
Wow. I want to ask you about what role did writing play in your healing process? And what do you hope that readers take away from the notes from a BlackBerry?
I don't really know if it helped me in the healing process. It definitely burned some energy and time
Okay.
sitting there by myself.
Mhm. So getting it
You
out
know,
you didn't feel any sense of relief with it, or you just felt it didn't provide that type of feeling as you were doing it? Or
I don't really remember.
okay,
I
that's
say this
honest.
very frequently. Yeah, like I don't
There's a
remember
lot
years
going
of
on.
my life.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
honesty. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. People do say that they are. The big thing is it was a cathartic, and I can honestly say I don't know. It occupied my time, and I'm a worrier by nature, so I think just having that outlet to not focus on
Okay.
what was going on, but more like
To
reliving
put
in the
something else.
past, and yeah, and to focus on the good times, I guess, is what I was able to do because I was talking about us growing up and living together in our 20s. And so I think it was a good distraction, if nothing else.
Okay. Was
But
there anything that you
yeah,
hope that the reader takes away? Or just
well,
feeling that,
that's the thing is like, yeah, I wrote it for my children, which obviously
have they read it?
after coming in my, some have, some have not. And
Julie.
it's funny because
Okay.
my oldest son will always say, because people ask him, have you read it? He goes, I don't have to read it. I lived it. And,
Okay.
and
Okay, that's fair.
I think that, yeah, I think that it would be too hard on him as well. He was 12
Mm.
and it was,
Okay, so he's old enough to
I can't
remember.
imagine. Yeah. Yeah. And so after reading it over, I finally got the courage after going through a divorce and I read it and I think that I didn't even recognize what I was feeling at the time. I had other people read it before I released it. And the big takeaway that I gathered from people was, wow, you were so lonely. And I will say that I don't, if someone had asked me yeah, how do you feel during that period? I don't think loneliness would have been something that I acknowledged.
Okay. What
But
would you
later
have
on, yeah,
acknowledged?
nothing probably.
Okay.
Chaos.
Okay. Disorder,
I didn't
chaos.
even feel as, yeah, I feel as if I didn't even have time to feel, which is a very strange, I think when you're going through all of that
Well, it's
coming
kind of
off of
being numb,
Tatum, then
right? Yeah. I mean, I think
yeah,
that's
I had to be.
the real
Yeah.
definition
And
of shock, and
yeah,
yeah.
and I think that people have this impression of what they would feel or how they would behave or what's an appropriate response or they they feel as if there's a standard to the way that someone should process
Yes,
and
you're right.
behave during these
You're
times.
right.
And I remember it leaving me, and it took me many years after reading the book to go back to from the outside. I think people thought I had it so together and that I was so strong.
Hmm.
And, I was just hiding it. I was literally falling apart, but I had this outside facade of, oh, everything's fine here. Everything's fine. Don't look behind the curtain. Everything's perfect. And I think that led to me pushing a whole lot of people away to pretending that I was okay and not being honest with not just them, but myself.
Hmm.
And, even after he passed, I kept that up. And I think that those things that serve us so well during times of crisis, putting yourself into numbness, almost being in denial, just skating through something and bouncing. And I wanted my children to have memories that were good of childhood. So I almost acted as if our lives are unreal. I smiled and I almost danced through it all.
Hmm.
So I think from the outside, a lot of people had this impression that I was not only strong, but I think more so after he passed, callous. That, that how could I just move on with life? How could
Yeah.
I not be crying? How did I not appear sad? But what people didn't see was when their grief started, I had already been living in grief for 18 months.
Wow.
And yeah, I lost a part of them every day
Hmm.
that nobody saw behind the scenes. So when they first started grieving, from their perspective, I'm sure I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to move forward. I can't sit in this grief anymore.
Hmm.
And it wasn't that I wasn't sad, but I had made a life of pretending everything was okay. And I was hell bent on continuing on that path. And I didn't skip a beat. And I never stopped to really examine the guilt I was dealing with,
Yeah.
just all these like emotions wrapped up, that survivor's guilt. I thought it was, in a crisis where one person makes it, out of the Twin Towers, another person doesn't. I didn't realize that it happens with caregivers and
Yes.
the slowness of watching somebody you love pass and suffer that you carry with you, whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
Hmm.
So, I think really that's what got me into the second part of my my chapter, my life, whatever you want to look at it as. After Colin passed, I just kind of thought, well, if I pack it all away and don't acknowledge it,
Then
then,
it'll
oh, it was
just.
sadder, yeah, it happened, but I'm over it and I'm just
Hmm.
going to move forward. And I
Yeah.
think it kept me stuck for a decade of trying to not see what was right in front of me.
Did grief change your definition of love or family in any way? Let's hear a word from one of our sponsors, Body and Voice Studios. Want to improve your singing, strengthen your vocal projection, or refine your diction? Now, you can take voice lessons from anywhere in the world with Body and Voice Studios. Their expert vocal coaches offer personalized online lessons so you can learn to sing from the comfort of your home, no matter where you are. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced singer, they'll give you the tools and understanding you need to use your voice with confidence. Mention Glass Half Full Podcast and receive 10% off your first trial lesson online. Visit www.bodyandvoicestudios.com to get started today. Again, visit www.voicestudios.com.
No, I don't think it did.
Okay.
I feel as if I was born a caregiver. And I mean that in every sense. My parents didn't get along, so I was the peacemaker in the family. My sister and my mom didn't get along, so I was peacemaking them. And then I moved straight into from there to being a mom, to being a special needs mom, to being a caregiver to my husband. It was a role that I feel I was born into, as anybody is born into any particular
But you enjoy
way of
doing it.
life, I
You
guess.
enjoy being the
I
caregiver.
didn't.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Okay.
some of it.
No, thank you for your
I
truth.
enjoy
Thank you
being,
for your truth.
yeah, no, I mean, I enjoy being a mom,
Okay.
but no, I don't enjoy having to sit back and watch people I love suffer. And I
Hmm.
spent, 24 years of 25 of watching Tatum be okay to not okay and poked and prodded and going through things that no one should have to, and later on in life, which we haven't gotten to, Tatum, when she was 13, came down with a rare form of cancer. And it was connective tissue cancer, which is, again, one of the rarest forms of cancer you can get. There's only about 30 cases in the United States every year, and
Wow.
they're all in geriatric patients. And she was 13. So
Mm.
she had her right side torso removed and her legs grafted to repair. And it was completely
Wow.
unrelated to her dwarfism. So yes, I love being a mom. In fact, that's probably the only thing that saved me. If you ask me one thing is, how did you carry on? How did you keep
It
going?
was the family.
It was for my children.
Well,
It was.
this is what you
But
wanted, right? This was you mentioned it, that it was something that you've always wanted, was the family since you were young, right? Is to be married, to have a big family. I think you kept saying from the beginning. So
yes,
it's something that almost
yeah,
like a dream. So it would make sense that you
yes,
could pull, that's would be a place where you'd pull energy from to feel the sense of, happiness or joy from in these type of moments.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And it will say, like I said, after Tatum was born, I think there was this impression like when I got pregnant again, there was almost this like, why are you doing that? You don't you have enough on your
I'm
plate? Shouldn't
sure.
you be focusing
I'm
on
sure.
Tatum? And then there was a degree of guilt in that I wasn't truly focused on what I should have been. But I will say, now 25 years later, had I not continued to have more children,
Yeah, 3 and 4. The rest of them
and
wouldn't be
found,
here.
yeah, well, and found joy and, and the enjoyment of a big family. And Tatum would have lived a very lonely existence as well as I would have,
Hmm.
being wrapped up in her medical. And, I probably could have spent a lifetime trying to focus on Tatum, hyper focus and make her better all the time. But to what end, what joy would that have brought her? So
This is
having
so
a big
true.
family, I think, has saved both of us. Yeah.
This is it. I wanted to ask you, being a caregiver on many levels, who's taking care of Julie while you are taking care of everyone else?
I don't know if you heard me smirk a little. um,
No, I didn't hear
I, I,
it.
I have, I think I have, well, to this day, I'm very, very blessed to have very, very good friends. But I also think I have this, my mother was Irish Catholic and probably the most Irish Catholic human you'll ever meet. So she taught me to be very independent, my sister and I both, to, don't ask for help, do it yourself. And I think that has gotten me to where I am. And I thank God every day that she did teach me those life lessons. But in the same breath, I will say she also taught me not to accept help, to mask perfection, to handle it on my own, that no one was going to save me. So I will say there have been many, many people over my many years here that have tried to take care of me, but I've never been open to it.
Okay.
It's uncomfortable for me. When Colin was around, we were a team. He was supportive. He would take care of me when, it was like we had a tag out system, like can't do it anymore. Then he'd tag in. But really, since I lost him, I would say, with the exception of, you know, my mother, who obviously is always here for me, I tend to be the person that takes care of everything. And I don't even know I'm doing it.
That's called the superhero. Let me tell you, Julie. Let me let
Well,
you know.
I
That's
don't know
called the
about that.
superhero. Your cape is
I don't
just
know
your
about
wear. Yes. Okay. Well, you know what? That's great. So let me ask you, are you a self motivator, or do you need someone or something to motivate you?
I'm a Pisces, so I don't
I'm
know
like,
if
what does
it's
that mean?
motivation
No, okay.
as
I was about to say,
much.
what does that mean? Okay.
Yeah,
Break it down to us for the rest of it. I've been living in Asia too long. What's
that's okay.
what does that mean?
Well, Pisces by nature, we're we're big dreamers. We've
Okay.
got big plans, big emotions. We
Okay.
don't live in the real world. Yeah, like I, in my head, I'm going to fix everything, and I can't really describe it. Like where it falls apart is the execution of it,
Okay.
because I'm
Okay.
very ADHD. So I have these big plans, and so people don't need to motivate me; they need to
Push you to get
refocus
refocus. Okay.
refocus. Yeah, I mean, I want to take the world on every day, but
Okay.
I tend to take on too much. I tend to become too enthusiastic about something, and then I get halfway in, and I'm like, I just lose focus, and I lose
Okay.
attention, and I'm on to the next thing. So unfortunately, I am more of the big idea person,
Okay. We
but the
need the
day to day
ideas.
and the little, yeah, the task orientation is where I get a little lost. So no, I think people need to demotivate me sometimes. I just have a lot of energy. I'll just leave it at
I
that.
love that. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your honesty. I wanted to ask you, what does resilience look like when life continuously throws unexpected challenges your way?
It, for me, there was always a solution no matter what happened. When I found out Tatum was sick, or when, for many years, I just tried to get back to where I was, whatever challenge I went through. I just wanted to return to the way that things were.
Hmm.
And to me, that was resilience. But I think as life has continued to throw things at me, I've learned that much like when you go away to college, you can't go home. But that doesn't mean that you can't visit there, first of all. And secondly, that you aren't growing and not needing the past to be comfortable.
Hmm.
And that's been the hardest thing for me, is to, because I am also a creature of habit, to let go of things and to recognize that you had what you had and it was great and it served you in that moment. But there's a reason why things change, and it forces you to grow. And if things didn't, if you didn't have hardships, then you couldn't feel joy either. So I think, to me, resilience is learning to refocus your energy, not on things that you can't control, but on things that you can, and making the best of the things around you that you can control.
Yes.
And again, not, you know, I think if somebody took a timeline and put my life on it, they would look at it like, gosh, this poor unfortunate soul. Where I don't feel that way.
Mm.
I'm very sad to have missed to lost my first husband, but then again, I feel like people can live a lifetime never knowing that kind of friendship or love. So I feel very blessed in having that. And I think, too, Tatum,
Hmm.
she, I won't say that it hasn't been, that I've been saddled with her illness and all that comes with it. But again, I've learned that, and I think this is a part of resilience too, is, there were so many people that really looked unfavorably on the way that I raised Tatum. When she had a trach, I would take her to the pools, and nurses would just go insane. She could die. I'd take her. I would take her to the mall, and they'd say, she's going to get sick. You just can't take her out in public. And I would always say to them, what good is a life that we preserve if we won't let them live it? And that
Mm.
has been my motto since she was born. Why? People would always, doctors chastise me because I don't go to every checkup and appointment and have her in every therapy that's out there. And, I could do that, but what quality of life would that be for her?
Exactly.
And, I think resilience teaches you what's really important, and to
Mm.
refocus and to see the good things rather than seeing everything as a challenge. I more see things as things that push us to grow, that
Yes.
are meant to be here. They're meant to
Yes.
happen,
Hmm.
whether we like them or not.
Right.
On the other side of them,
There's
they're
something
worthwhile.
positive. Yes.
And yeah. And sometimes you have to look a little harder. I'm not going to lie. But there's always a blessing to be found in it. And,
It's true.
and being able to see that, sometimes I know people are shaking their head at me when I say those type of things, because it almost, I guess it's kind of like believing in Santa Claus, if it makes it all better.
Well,
Somehow
hey,
how magical, but
yes,
you know,
exactly. How magical. No, but that's a great
yeah,
answer. That is a
yeah,
great answer
yeah.
on your sense of
So,
resilience, seeing in a different view about it. But thank you for sharing that. I did want
mhm.
to ask you about what unique challenges do parents of children with special needs face, both emotionally and logistically?
For me, I think the isolation really is one of the
Oh,
hardest
okay. Okay.
parts. It's many times in my life, I have found myself becoming a part of a club I didn't sign up for, whether that's the widow club or the special needs club.
We said I didn't
It's
put my name
almost,
down for this one. I did not.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't volunteer for this. Could you remove me? Um, I think that you no longer feel as if you can complain. And I find it so funny this day. I have two teenage girls, and if I say something about them or their attitude or something they've done, nobody gasps. Everyone expects you to complain about your teenager and,
Yeah.
how hard of a time they're giving you. But if you do that with a special needs child, it's almost as if everyone goes, like, how could you say
I can't
that?
believe you do that.
I
Yeah.
can't believe you're going to make fun of her. Like, there's this like hands off about special needs children. And I do understand it. I would never want someone to, find humor in the fact that they're special needs, but there's so much humor to be found in their behaviors as there is in any other child. But it's almost
Exactly.
as if it's taboo for you to talk about your child in any other light but their medical needs or how great they're doing in their therapies. And I do mean that.
Mm.
So you become in this special group where you don't talk about your children in the same way that all your friends are talking about their children, because first of all, you can't. Second of all, when you start talking about them, there's a hush that goes over the room because
Mm.
it's almost like everyone is instantly feeling bad for you, as if,
Wow.
oh, we're sorry that you have that.
Yeah.
And nobody knows they're doing it. It's not
It's just
intentional, but
but it's happening.
yeah,
Wow.
it is happening. And it gives you a signal that you are not supposed to talk about it. You
Yeah.
are not supposed to share those parts of it.
A social hum
And so
of
you find
silence.
yeah, yeah. And so you find a few good people in your life that will allow you to vent and not judge you for it. And you find other special needs parents that,
Yes, they
again,
could understand.
they're going through their trauma. You're going through your trauma. There's not even, I don't think, space to share. It's just a very, like I said, it's like anything else that's very hard to deal with. Nobody else understands what you're going through, and you keep it to yourself and you put your head down. You do what you got to do. As a caregiver, you feel bad for complaining because you're watching your child suffer and you're thinking, how dare I
Complain and I'm
complain about
okay.
this when they're going through this?
Yeah, wow. I
But
didn't think about that.
it is very hard to be a special needs parent and navigate the normal world.
Do you think
We
as
had
a,
nursing.
I'm sorry. Do you think as a
No, you're
special
fine.
needs parent that like is there something that you wish people understood immediately without needing an explanation?
If people understood that you know there's something wrong with your child. I don't know, people about this way of like pretending it's not happening, you know. Um,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's okay. Yeah, like, Tatum had a trach. So she had to be suctioned and she would cough and choke when she was a baby. And people would just pretend not to be sitting next to me or
I guess
not
they
to
don't
hear.
know
We
what to
all
do, right?
right. And we all tell our children, like,
Don't look
don't
at them.
stare,
Don't.
don't
Yes.
stare,
Yep.
don't look at the,
Yep.
yeah, don't. But in doing that, you become invisible. And
Wow. I didn't
being
think about that.
invisible is really tough. And in the same breath again, I don't know that I would have wanted people to call it out or stare at me either.
Okay.
So I don't know what the answer is. I just know that it's almost as if you become invisible in the world when you're with them. And then you become invisible when they're not around because you can't have the same conversations anymore. You
Wow.
don't have the same things in common with the people you used to. Your whole world changes, and you're no longer all the things that you used to depend on and think.
Hmm.
Who your best friends are. suddenly the veil comes off and they can't handle it. So they walk away and then you feel like it's you. I went through many years of depression thinking people just don't like me anymore. I'm no fun to be around. And I can see
Oh,
why.
Julie.
But I'm only saying this, and I didn't feel it at the time because I think these are very important things to talk about
No,
with
of
the
course they
special
are.
needs
It's
parents
true.
out there. So
And for
yeah,
us to hear who are not special needs parents, we need to hear this
yeah,
perspective because we don't know.
yeah, and I think if somebody had just acknowledged, gosh, I really give you so much credit for what you're doing,
Oh,
and walked over and said, like, can I help you with something?
yes.
Because just even sitting down next to you and being uncomfortable with you,
Yes.
no one wants to be
This is
uncomfortable.
so true.
Nobody.
Speak on it.
So I think the best way that people can deal with being uncomfortable is just to avoid you. And what they don't understand is it feels personal. And I
Wow.
know it's not. And I don't blame anyone for their feelings. I saw it with Tatum, I saw it with Colin, but it does leave the special needs or caregiver with this feeling of I am no fun anymore. Nobody wants me around. And I'm just going to sit in this by myself because I don't want to burden other people with how terrible this all is.
Wow. Mm.
Yeah. So
I just want to quickly
but
touch.
from the outside, you're smiling and saying everything's fine.
Well, this is it,
So
right? You don't want people to know because then once you let people in, there's lots of questions that need to be answered. You got to do backstories, explain. There's just so much. It's just easier to just put the smile on for a few seconds, and then I'm out of your face, and we're good.
yeah, and I
So
think also you're afraid that people will further stop inviting you places if you become even less fun, or if you don't talk about good things. You're afraid that even the people that still do stick around are going to leave too.
this is it. This is it. I want to change focus a little bit. And I know there was a second marriage that happened. I wanted to ask you, were there any children by the second marriage?
Yes, I had two children
Okay,
with
two
my
children
second
by the
husband.
second marriage. Okay.
Yeah,
These are the teenagers that you talked about.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I was just using that as an example. I never
It's
complain
okay.
about them.
It's
I'm
okay.
totally
You're
teasing.
mom. I mean, hey, it's fine. It's fine. I don't, maybe they won't even listen to this. So you're safe. You're safe.
No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, they're fine.
So the second marriage brought an entirely different kind of hardship. Could you give us a little insight about that as well?
Well, after Colin died, as I said, I was grappling with a lot of feelings I couldn't even like put my finger on. I just wanted to move on. I wanted to put it all in my past. But if you don't deal with things and you keep trying to ignore them, I say many years it was like I had a band playing in the back of my head no matter what I was doing.
Mm,
So I just wanted to move on. I wanted, I told you I'd always wanted a big family, and I felt as if Colin and I would have proceeded to, we wanted more children. I just wanted my life back, and he wasn't in it anymore. So I figured, well, I can find somebody like him, or that I love just as much as him, or someone to share my life with. And
hmm
so I ended up getting into someone was working in my home, and it was a really bad situation all the way around, but I couldn't see it. I was so focused on what I wanted, and I felt like so much had been taken from me that I was going to do what I wanted to do and have the future I wanted
mm
come hell or high water.
mm.
So I ignored a lot of red flags. I made decisions that I still look back on and try to retrace why. And I naturally, I think, just fell into a really abusive relationship with somebody who was very emotionally abusive to me. And I will say it, I didn't know that I had the guilt feelings of, every day I would have to, toward the end, I would have to tell Colin he was dying to his face and lie to him. And, all those
Mm.
things sit with you and you're forced to reconcile with them. So when my second husband would say things like, nobody likes you, because he knew that was a big trigger for me, then I would think, you know what, you're right. Nobody
Wow.
does. So all the things that he said to me seemed real. They became real for me. And the more he said them, the more they became even more real until, I felt as if I deserved everything that I
Oh,
got.
wow. Wow.
And yeah, it was a really bad decade. I
I was
left my
about to say,
home, I
how
left
long
my
was this?
band.
It was 10 years?
It was, you know,
Oh,
when I, when Colin passed, I had to leave. I couldn't stand. I became a beacon of sadness in the town, and people would see me and cry. And I just kind
oh
of felt like
wow.
if I didn't get out of there, that I would never get to move on because people were holding me into a space that I probably should have sat in for a bit and, really worked through my feelings. But instead, I was like, nope, I'm out of here. And I just picked up and left. I left my family, I left my childhood friends. And as the years went on and I didn't contact them, or I did, I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of the years after that. I lost pretty much everything, every connection, every
Wow. Is this
relationship
after the
besides
first
this.
husband or this? I-
Yes,
Okay,
this is
okay,
with the second
okay.
husband. Yeah,
Oh, the
I
second
moved away
husband.
with the second husband.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. We moved away to a small isolated place that
Eh,
he wanted and chose. So
Okay, so he isolated you, or you followed, whatever, how it worked, but there was no one there besides you. You didn't have any
no, we
friends
moved
or.
halfway across the country with four
Oh,
little kids, pregnant with my fifth, no job, no friends, no family, up on a mountain,
oh, snap.
and
That's isolation. Yeah.
never looked back. Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
did
And
the
by the
children,
time,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how did the older kids take to him? Your oldest son, Tatum, did they find him nice? Was he nice to the kids as well? Since they weren't his children, was he a kind father?
No, he was terrible.
Oh, gosh,
Um,
Julie. Okay. Wow.
yeah, and I think again that's something I struggle with now still.
Thank you for sharing.
I always had this impression that he was terrible to me and I was some sort of buffer. And, I took a great amount of abuse thinking that I was shielding them.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are in a house, you can't shield them. And I had this mistaken belief that we only fought at night and text fought. And I was so wrapped up in it, I couldn't see what was really in front of me. So I've had to reconcile a lot of that. He was never physically abusive,
Okay.
but emotionally he was pretty bad to them as well. Came home
Wow.
one day and
Even his own children?
demanded that they all. He didn't really ever get to know his own
Okay,
children,
got
but
it.
yeah,
But go ahead.
he
He came home and demanded one day.
yeah
I
he
felt it.
that everyone call him dad. We weren't allowed to put
Oh,
up pictures
wow.
of Colin anymore. Yeah, yeah, and he was very, very abusive to my second son, particularly.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so it was a decade. He did travel for work,
Mm-hmm.
so I was left alone a lot, which at the time was a great source of our fighting. But I will say that looking, it was a blessing, even though
To
I
have that
wanted him to
space.
be there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a blessing that he was never around. But it was almost like I lived in a fog for 10 years. And I think I was so focused on not remembering the past that I really just checked out of life altogether
Wow.
and became so hyper focused on saving this relationship. And I think it was because, I lost Colin. I lost everything I wanted. And so when my second husband would threaten to leave, I would do anything
Wow.
to make him stay. I mean,
And,
anything he said, anything. You, it, I literally would
and
have
I'm
done
sure he knew
anything.
this. I'm sure he knew it.
Yes. Very well,
Wow.
yes. And so when I would question him, he would threaten to leave and or I'd kick him out and then he'd start to leave because I knew it was bad and I'd kick him out. And then when he would start to leave, I would panic.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh my gosh, I can't be by myself. And I would beg him back.
And then
And it
here
was
comes the
such a
cycle.
cycle.
Yep. This is it.
Oh, and it went on, for literally a decade of me kicking him out, then begging him back, then, 3 days of me crying and apologizing for being mad that he would drain our accounts or whatever he was doing.
How did you
It kept
realize
me in a
enough was
place of,
enough? What brought you to feeling that that I'm not going back anymore?
well, the average person takes about 7 times to leave an abusive relationship. I think I was probably, if not 7, 8, and we had actually separated for several months. And when we were together, I had fibromyalgia, or at least that's what they thought it was. So I was on all sorts of muscle relaxers and physical therapy. And
Hmm.
within 2 months of us not being together, I used to run 10 miles a day when I was, when Colin was sick, and I couldn't run to the mailbox when I was
Wow.
married. And within 2 months, I was out running 5 miles again. And
Oh, okay. That says everything, doesn't
yeah,
it? Wow.
yeah, but he came back and he said, well, if you really want to, if you're still begging me back, and I wasn't, but you fall into habits and cycles. And then I started feeling bad for him. So we reconciled, and my son, the one I told you about, who was the source of much abuse, finally confronted me. And he said, I don't know why you keep letting him come back. He's threatened to kill you. He's
Mm,
threatened to kill me in front of you.
mm.
And I've he's ruined my childhood. I don't leave my room. I've slept with, some sort of
Wow.
weapon to protect myself since I was 6. I
Mm.
don't come out of my
Wow.
room.
Wow.
And I was it wasn't anything I didn't know, but I was forced to look at it and take a hard look at,
Mm-hmm.
my feeling of, oh, I was
This young
protecting them
child
and
coming
being
to
a
you.
buffer, and I wasn't.
Wow. That's a real
Yeah, and
hard
well,
truth.
he was 16 by that point.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was, I remember thinking I might have stayed in it forever because I really didn't. I felt like I deserved what he was doing to me.
Mm.
But in that moment, I thought, well, even if I think I deserve it, they certainly don't. And in that
Exactly.
moment, the veil came off. Yeah. And I recognized that I didn't care what happened. I was never going to do that again.
Wow, that's intense.
But he did come for me. So I
Oh my
knew that was
God.
going to, in these relationships, you do a lot of stupid stuff
It's true.
that you don't even know why you're doing. You're on autopilot.
In the fog.
You're so hyper focused on, yeah. And you do so many dumb things. And then when the end comes, they're coming for you.
Yes.
They're going to use all of your worst things against you. You've done stupid things that are going to come back to haunt you. Everyone is going to find out what went on in your house.
Yeah.
My
This seems to be an
need for
embarrassment.
everyone to think that I live this perfect life, it was all coming off again. And
Wow.
yeah, and
Mm.
I had also seen him take down other people. So I knew what he was capable of.
Wow. Now, when you say take down other people, what does that mean?
He would have vendettas against people and go to great lengths to make their lives miserable
Oh,
if they
okay.
stepped out of
Okay. He's
line
one of
or,
these.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Thank you for
Yeah.
breaking that down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
I want to change a little bit, and I want to ask you, for listeners who may quietly be struggling right now, what is one action that they could take this week towards healing?
For me, the most important thing, or the way that I regroup, is when I start to spiral or things are really challenging. I make, whether that's a physical or a mental list of all the things that I actually can control. I look at a problem, whether that's illness or bad marriage or whatever it is, and you can't change everything in a day because it takes you it takes you years to get where
Yes.
you're at usually when things go bad. But making a list of, not being overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, I have to change everything. Just making a list of, okay, today I'm going to go through my bank account and I'm going to cancel memberships I don't need
Mm,
so that I can take that money and put it away to save a little bit of it.
nice.
Or I'm going to, see how much my house is worth. Or I'm going to sit down with a financial planner and find out you know, how I can secure myself, how I can make sure that I'm protected because, and I'm speaking as a woman and that's my experience. And so I'm not saying that men don't go through things as well as women, but again, this is my
No,
experiences,
this is it. And this is all we're
you
asking
know,
for today is yours. So,
yeah. Um, as a woman, we care so much about other people.
it's true.
We tend to put other people before ourselves and we think we're keeping everyone around us safe by giving everything we have to them. But I think what we don't recognize sometimes is when we're running on empty, when we're forced to perform and really stand up, we might not have the resources or the energy to do it.
Mm,
So I think it's really important to do a daily check of how am I doing? What do I need in my life
yes.
to make me feel more secure, to make me feel more accomplished? Again, as a mother, as a caregiver, nobody praises you on it for hard work. Nobody says good
So
job.
true.
Nobody says, like, oh, you get a bonus this month. There's no
Yeah,
the
there's no
only
gratitude given
external.
for the
Yeah,
work
well,
that's seen
there
besides the.
is, but the only
I
gratitude that
guess
you
there
really
is.
find is seeing the people that you love happy and safe and healthy.
It's true.
And so you constantly gauge your own well-being and the
From that.
well-being of those around you. And unfortunately, that's an empty road
Well,
because no one
it's so
around
true.
you can't make anyone else okay. The only person that you can truly make okay is yourself. And when you make yourself okay, then you have more energy to help
To
those
be
around
others.
you. But that little
Right.
piece always gets lost
It's
in the
so
shuffle.
true, right? It's so true. Just learning to be able to keep that together, that little piece with it.
Yeah.
I love it. I like to ask all my guests this final question. Is your glass half empty or half full?
It is so interesting that you say that because in my book, in the first chapter, there's a whole section that I talk about having a glass empty versus glass full. And, in the book, I say, I'm a very fortunate person. I live in a developed world. I have a house, I have a car. I don't never going hungry. So I should consider myself with a glass half full, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then someone came and they emptied my glass. So I feel now as if my glass is always half full. But I will say that I think the perspective of your glass really depends on where you started from and
All right now.
readjusting what you thought you needed, what you thought you wanted, because I think sometimes those things that we think we want keep us stuck in things we don't want to be in.
Oh,
And by that, I mean, I was so afraid of losing everything when I was in my second marriage, so afraid of losing everything. But when I got on the other side of it, I found out that the things that I really was were so afraid to lose, they never had to begin with.
there it is.
It was a hard reality for
Sorry,
me to
cuz.
recognize. If I lost friends, I didn't have
I've
them
been
to begin with.
speak on it.
If
Yes.
yeah, and that's very hard. But if your relationships are so fragile that you taking care of yourself or making sure that you're okay, or them not giving you the floor to tell your truth, then you never had those friends. They were never your friends to
Yeah,
begin with. They might
that's
have
the
been
real
nice to
reality.
you.
They might have been great
Yeah,
acquaintances or comrades
yeah, you might have had a
or
lot of fun with
constituents.
them, and
Yeah,
yeah, and they might have served a purpose for you in that moment.
and that's it.
But yeah, so I think half full versus half empty really it alters over time.
Hmm.
And it really is about taking an empty glass and filling it back up again, whether that's full or halfway. If you're sitting on a half empty glass, you still got a half a glass.
Right? Still got a little
So
bit
that's
in
the way I
there.
look at it.
I love it. I
So
love it. I love it. Let me ask you, do you have any final thoughts? Anything else you want to leave us with for our listeners?
I think one of the most important things that I've learned in all of my many, many years here is, the hardest lesson for me was to stop caring what people think
Yes.
because I've lived a long life of making decisions based on what are people going to think.
Yes.
And it really doesn't matter. If you, there, when you make a decision in life, you make it with all of the information that is then presented to you, not the future of what's going to happen, not even the truth, like your truth is not the truth. So if you make a decision hoping for the best with the best of intentions, even if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work out the way that you want it to, that doesn't mean you didn't make the best decision.
So true.
And it doesn't mean that it's your fault. And I think you know, I was always worried about how people were going to see me, whether they were going to think I was a good person. And now the only person I care about thinking I'm a good person is me.
I
Because
love
if
that.
I can look in the mirror and know that everything that I've done to that point has been done not to ever hurt anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
If people got hurt along the way, I certainly apologize. And I
Mm-hmm.
would never have wanted that to happen, but that was never the intent. So if you were sitting there feeling that way, your decisions didn't go the way you wanted to, you're hanging in there because you don't want to admit you're wrong or you don't want people to think that you're stupid, you're living a very unhealthy life and you deserve better. So care
Yes.
about you, stop worrying about what other people think. And when you get on the other side of it, you'll understand that it doesn't matter. But right now, you think it does.
Of
It
course.
doesn't. You'll find that on the other
On the
side.
other side. Yes,
On the other
Julie.
side of
Give it to us, honey.
it.
Give it to us. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please tell everyone how they can reach you if they want to find out more about you, about your books and information. Where do we go?
So if you go to my website called juliebarthauthor.com,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the home base for everything. There is, which we didn't talk about, I opened up a charity that was formed to help women led households. They find themselves in crisis, whether that's divorce or illness or special needs. Even if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what to do, you know your resources are gone, and really you just need a plan. And that's what our charity specializes in, finding different resources. And for whatever else there isn't, then we try to provide a canopy for. But our goal is to give you a master plan of how to get out of wherever you're in,
Nice.
healthy, safe, and on the other side. So it's called the Colin James Barth Outreach, and tabs for my charity is on there if you want to get involved, if you want to read more about it, if you want to volunteer, and certainly if you need help, please do reach out. Also on the same juliebarthauthor.com is tab for my daughter, my special needs daughter, who's 25 now, is self-taught artist, and she's pretty amazing.
Nice.
And I can say that because she did it all on her own. And so her art is being sold and proceeds go to fund our charity. So
Nice.
if you want to get involved, if you go to her website, find something you like, everything can be custom made. And yeah, all the proceeds go to help someone to pay it forward.
We love paying
so
it forward.
That's where you can find everything.
Excellent. Yeah. Julie, thank you so much for being a guest here on Glass Half Full. We are so glad to have had you today.
Thank you for having.
Yes, you're
I
very,
was
very
so
welcome.
blessed to be here. Thank you.
Oh, we are blessed to have you and to share your story and just to hear about your resilience and your strength. And just thank you for being vulnerable today and coming in and just being able to, open up your life story and share. I know sometimes going through these stories bring back emotions and things. So we're just grateful for you just, being able to be honest with us and really just share about your life. And so we are grateful for it. And I'm sure people will have learned, and we look forward to definitely getting onto your website and finding all your information there. Everything will be listed under the episode because, people aren't writing things down today. So they'll just be underneath. It'll be there for the people to find. So that way they won't be struggling to be like, what did she say? What is it again? It'll be all listed so they can find it easily for that. Thank you. Yes, no, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you real soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, listeners of Glass Half Full. Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of our podcast. I'm your host, Chris Levins, and I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for being a part of our supportive community. Remember, Glass Half Full is not just a podcast. It's a safe platform for everyone to share their life experiences. Your stories and voice matter, and we appreciate you for being here with us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our future content, please subscribe, follow, and rate our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us reach even more listeners who can benefit from these valuable life experiences. As we wrap up this episode, always keep in mind, you are blessed. No matter the challenges you face, there's a reservoir of strength within you. Until next time, stay positive, and remember, the glass is always half full. See ya!